How do we find unbiased election information? So in the United States, our elections, we're not informed by the government. The government is not obliged, nor does it practice producing documentation giving a list of things, because that would be like tampering with the election and impossible to find something unbiased. The next thing that I did is I went to Gemini and I said, well, how do I get unbiased info about the election? And I got a wah-wah. Google also, and businesses also, don't want to go out and like promote one candidate or the other because one candidate might win. And we saw that Jeff Bezos got in trouble with his Washington Post. They were going to endorse a candidate, and then he said, no, we can't do that, and that got out. So how do we find it in academic situation? I'm going to give you some tips on how to find some unbiased information. These are journalist tools that are made to inform somebody who might be coming from a biased publication. And then at the end, I'm going to show you the media bias chart, which is really a lot of fun. So first of all the links that we have are databases or they're web links, but if you go to research guides and type in communication, and go to COM 1020 public speaking, I have the selection special right here. So all the databases and websites that I'm going to go to are listed here. But these two are databases. This is open web. So if you're not logged into the University of Utah campus information system or something like that, then log in. So I'll go to CQ Researcher first. This is a tool put together by journalists like 100 years ago who were dealing with the same thing. They're like, there's like people arguing about this and they're presenting it as the truth. But then there's people opposite of that opinion, and they're saying that it's the truth too. How do we get this unbiased information? So their solution was to hire people to do factual, as unbiased as possible reports. This one's kind of annoying, so let me show you something. So if I type in 2024 election, there's like all this stuff, but there's a key next to it. So we don't have a subscription to that. Click on content available to me, and then sadly there's less. But what we will get in these reports, let's look at foreign election interference. What you'll get with these reports is a credible author that you can look up, Ken Fireman, and what you can do is find the pro and the con, the debate points, chronology. I like the chronology, but this is just like one big long PDF that you can download. So my favorite one is the chronology. Come on, give me chronology. So you can see where foreign election influence came from. So it's not just something that just started, but they have like these key moments that anyone could look up and put in there. So we have Hitler, we've got the Soviets, we've got the CIA, everybody's in here. And it's kind of, it's fun to think about like all this precedence beforehand that you wouldn't get from one candidate saying, oh, you're interfering with our elections, pretending if it's this novel thing that has never existed before. But it's kind of limited. So let me give you a different tip. So those are fun, 2024 election, that's fun to look in. But I would recommend instead looking up election issues. So with issues, there's a much more content available to us. So immigration, I have to check that I spelled it right. Spelling counts. And then the content available to me. And this is more reliable. So here we have immigration, and check these because some of these reports are old. But you can see immigration published this year. And it's not as big as the report. So there's only like a few of the things, but you can reliably read this and know that it comes from both sides of an issue, or hopefully multiple sides of an issue. So they won't be necessarily othering the immigrants from a North American perspective, but hopefully they'll include immigrant voices as well. And they cite all their sources, so it's kind of like an up-to-date Wikipedia of what's going on. But again, it is written by a known author that you could look up and you can see who they are. So it's not just like ghost written or something like that. CQ Researcher is great. Ooh, by the way, if you want to use it, you can cite it. Of course, these sometimes are incorrect, but that one looks pretty good. Okay, next thing that I want to show you. Gale opposing viewpoints. I always think of Aunt Gail from Bob's Burgers. This is another one, but let's try the election. Ooh, hello. Presidential election of 2024. Oh, they have a report. Sometimes databases like this will have a report that they've generated, and it's meant to be something for students to use. I don't know if it's for K through 12 or if it's like 12 through 16, but it's definitely not the graduate level. So beware. You may have to beware of like different parts of your brain. So some parts, I have this handy chart that my daughter drew. We have your amygdala, which is automatic thinking that works with your core values a lot. So if you already believe something really, really deeply, and you come across an idea that you don't agree with, if you get upset, or if you see something provocative like propaganda or something like that, or disinformation, be mindful that your prefrontal cortex is something that considers things rationally, but a lot of the political rhetoric is designed to get you to react and act and do something about it. So with that caveat, you can read more. And this one's pretty good, but it's not necessarily comprehensive as the CQ Researcher is. But you can see related subjects, political parties, and see what they do with political campaigns. Good thing we only have the citation from 1995. So some of these might change. But again, this is where you can look up opposing viewpoints on something. And so let's look up abortion. It doesn't say when this is published per se, does it? But you can get that background information. So if your candidate is dropping precedents in the name of like somebody who made a bill, or Roe v. Wade, or Supreme Court this, or blah, blah, blah. So here's one that's being dropped in there. You can inform yourself about the topics and the issues, and usually it'll be pretty straightforward on how a candidate feels, because a lot of candidates are like wearing stuff on their sleeve right now. Last thing, and this is a bit of a, in my guide, I say, how can you use overt bias in your favor when examining the election? Have you ever heard of the interactive media bias chart? It's linked right here. The interactive media bias chart is where the editorial staff have had enough precedents where we know where they stand. And they've put it together with fact checking. So the more reliable, the higher on the peak it is, and the more political, the more it'll go left or right. It writes itself pretty well. And if you play with these reliability range, all it does is it takes it up the mountain. So for what it's worth, I can see the mountain with all the other ones in here. So here we see Alex Jones and InfoWars, famously biased, so much so that they were sued. But what you could do, if you're interested, you could find something that is opinion or reliability in whatever your tolerance is, and you could move up the mountain and say, you know what, I only want stuff that's like really top of the line. Then you could move into this chart and you could see what's up there. And some of them, so Fox News leans to the right, but if it's reliable in their use of fact reporting and analysis, you could use that to go and see what the right is talking about. And you could go way over to the other side, NPR and PBS NewsHour, and you could use this chart to figure out that. I would be loath to go into the center. I don't know. So I used to think that a couple of the sources that I looked at were unbiased, but they've kind of shifted. And so they've become a little, this chart changes over time. But at the top is usafacts.org. So let's see what we've got. Who are we? I don't care what they have to say. Oh, it's Steve Ballmer. I heard about this one. He's annoyed with everything, and so he's doing everything data-driven. So this has kind of been hyped up recently. But again, where's my amygdala? Think about your amygdala. If you're freaking out about something, it could be that they're trying to say something that's like biased. So there you go. If you wanted to do an in-depth, and we had weeks and weeks and weeks to go, 2024 potential election, you could look for scholarship. But since the election is ongoing, how reliable is that going to be? It hasn't happened yet, but you could do peer-reviewed journals, but this is going to take you forever to get through. Forecasting. That's not helpful at all. One last thing that I would like to encourage you to do, this is Dale's little biased interpretation over here. When you look at social sciences and how they record maps, that's things like the census. Census maps election. Something that I would encourage you to do is consider, oh, where's Utah? Oh, here we go. Consider that when you go in, oh, where'd the map go? When you go into detail, you would notice that there's like, in wherever you're voting, that there might be a little bit of polarity on one side and a little bit of polarity on the other side. But when you vote, every single election is recorded and kept by the US Census. This data goes back hundreds of years. If you want to know how, there's a database called Social Explorer, but it's out on the open web on census.gov as well. But notice that there's these moments in between where they're kind of not decided. And sometimes you see these purple zones or pink, or maybe it's just not quite the right color because it's mixing up. When you vote, you are in essence setting down who you are and what you value and what matters to you in that vote, and that will be recorded permanently. And so you're setting a trend for the rest of your life. So if you're voting for the first time, know that you're contributing to this map, and this pool has changed. If you look at election maps, like going back, it's always changing this way and that. And so you're contributing to the future of our electoral process just as much as you are with your vote in our current election. So if you're discouraged by claims of gerrymandering or supermajorities or things like that, still vote, because it still matters. Your voice counts, and it's not just for one election, but it's like for the rest of the United States history. This has been Dale, your librarian. Thanks for watching.